Well, welcome friends once again to First Baptist Church Grand Cayman here on Tuesday the 26th of May. One of the few addresses I can remember from my high school days took place around 1964. We had a visit from the Dean of Liverpool Cathedral. He'd been recently appointed and he was speaking at our Founders' Day service. And the theme of his address, which I recall so clearly, was the importance of having a sense of humour. Now, I've got to tell you, being in Liverpool, that was in itself a master stroke because of the 1,000 or more people before him, mainly Liverpool schoolboys. Well, everybody knows in Liverpool that every other person is a budding, would-be professional comedian. It's just the kind of place it is. Of course, we realise that humour can be carried too far, it can be offensive, it can be insensitive, it can be subversive. The question really that concerns the Christian is, but is it okay to be humorous? And as somebody remarked, that if the Lord doesn't have a sense of humour, some of us, myself included, might be in big, big trouble. Well, for those who think that the Bible is very straight-laced and very straight-faced, and never has any humorous content, or what you make of this reading from Proverbs 26 today. Let us take it up about the sluggard in verse 13. The sluggard says, "There's a lion in the road, a fierce lion roaming the streets. As a door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. The sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He's too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. The sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who answer discreetly." One of William Shakespeare's first plays, a farce, a comedy, is called a comedy of errors. Well, there's a comedy of errors in these 4 verses here before us today. The sluggard says there's a lion in the road, a fierce lion roaming in the streets. Comedy of errors number 1. Well, there may be a lion out there, but he's not going to do anything about it. This is his lockdown procedure. Comedy of error number 2. As a door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. He's just kind of... It's not, of course, that he's lazy. It's just that he's not a morning person. He functions better at night. That's probably his excuse. And the sluggard, number 3, error, buries his hand in the dish. He's too lazy to bring it to his mouth. How absurd. But he just can't be bothered. He'd rather take a chill pill than actually something that's going to do him good. And then, when you reproach him, error number 4, he's wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can give an answer. He knows the truth. He's got the inside track. He hasn't thought about anything deeply, maybe in years, if ever. But of course, he's where it's at. This is, if you like, biblical humour, a comedy of errors. I remember some years ago, a lady approaching me to reprove me for my telling a joke, apparently as part of a sermon. And in high dudgeon she said to me, "Do you think Jesus would tell a joke?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, where did he tell a joke?" And I just pointed her to those words in the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus talks about a person with a little tiny speck in their eye and another guy coming up with a huge plank out of his eye and say, "Hey, I think you've got a problem with your eye. Let me take that little speck out." And you say, "Well, what about the plank in your own eye?" You see, that is meant to be humorous, but not as an end in itself, so we just have a good belly laugh at the absurdity. But it's there so that we think, and we say, maybe there is something I need to take out of my eye before I go round sorting out every Tom, Dick, and Harriet. I've discovered this, that when I take the Lord God Almighty really, really seriously, full on, then I don't have to take anybody else with respect where respect and honour is due, of course. I don't have to take anybody else that seriously. As an old hymn captures it, fear him, you saints, and you will then have nothing else to fear. You see, to ignore the living God is no laughing matter. To forget what he has done for us in Jesus Christ is the biggest comedy of errors imaginable. God deliver us from such humour indeed.